Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Whatever time you're watching this, thanks for watching Common Sense Fishing. So I'm going to transfer these names real quick to the lower corner so I can erase them so I can use some of this whiteboard. I've got all of the stuff, all of the cards. I just need to send them out. They'll go out probably this next week here. And I got to remember Mario 2 times. So we're going to get him a double thing because he didn't get the last one. So, all right. You're wondering what I'm doing, right? Great way to start a live stream with my back to you guys, mumbling, some mumbo jumbo you probably can't hear. Just give me a moment, folks. We're going to get right to it. I got some good information for you tonight, hopefully, that will help with fishing in some of this crazy weather. Oof. So, we're here in California, we're having a lot of rain, we're having a lot of flooding. Water levels in the lakes are rising. They didn't go to full overnight, but rivers and creeks are a whole different story. They're overflowing. A lot of them are busting. They're just flooding everywhere, basically, a lot of the smaller creeks and rivers. The lakes have gone up, like I think the standard amount that most of the lakes have gone up is about 8% here in California. So we had a nasty drought where usually they say about 51 to 50%, 51 to 56% full this time of year. And they're saying that we were at like 33 to 30 something. And we've gone up to 38% or so. So about 5 or 6% increase is what they said. So it just depends on the lake. So it's an average, but they said about 5%, 5 to 6% increase in lake levels from the last storm. So the one we got rolling through tonight and tomorrow morning will probably, rise that up a bit. Snowpacks, going to be good. So the lake levels are going to be rising. There's going to be a lot of fresh water coming in. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen. So I want to talk about that tonight, talk about fishing conditions, what to do, how to fish safe in this kind of weather. Is you're going to have a lot of debris that's washed down the mountains. There's going to be floating logs and trees and stumps and everything in the lakes. It can cause flips and rollovers, and then the water's freezing cold. Not a good time. You don't want to flip or roll over or have any of that happen anyways, but especially not in the middle of the winter when hypothermia can get you really quick, and there's not a lot of people out on the lake this time of year either. And so it's just, ideal conditions for something unsafe to happen. There's a lot, like I said, a lot of debris will come floating down the river arms, creek arms, get out into the main lake when you're going hauling anywhere from 40 to 80 miles an hour. Hitting a giant tree is not something you really want to do. Trust me. So, that's something you have to be aware of. I recommend taking your time. Hey, Mad Bass, Happy New Year. So we're going to talk about a little bit of some fishing safety, how important it is to make sure you got your life vest, make sure someone knows what lake you're at, when you're going to be home, because there is a lot of debris that's going to be coming into the lakes, right? So first off, I just want to talk about fishing safety like that. Just watch out for debris. The lake is rising instead of lowering, so any islands or things you would have known about are either going to be more underwater now or in the same places they were. So that's not much of concern. The main thing is just there's going to be a ton of debris floating down into these lakes. So watch out there, guys. Keep it safe. I got an email from BBT. Looks like they've canceled the Nacimiento and McClure tournament that's scheduled for January 7th because of debris, stuff like that. So that's going to give some problems. So if you're out there fun fishing, and even if you're tournament fishing, but there's a lot of debris out there, just watch out. That's the main thing I wanted to say right there on that. Now, getting into fishing tips wise, man, the water's going to be brown or dirty. There's going to be a lot of fresh incoming oxygenated water that may, in some instances, actually be colder than the lake water. So there's a lot of crazy things that'll happen, but there's just oxygen rich microbes and minerals and things will be coming in, and there's going to be there'll be a lot of fish in those areas where you've got some fresh incoming water. Some of the top dogs will sit there. So the two places there's going to be a lot of fish, in my opinion, right now are going to be in washes and drains and areas where water is coming down into the lake. Off and around that area, anywhere from right up shore all the way down to, as deep as it needs to be from there, you should be doing good and catching fish. The other position and place that they're going to be is when all this craziness is happening, lakes going up or down or whatever have you. There's a lot of debris, stormy, nasty weather. Fish down there deeper are less affected. So a lot of times when there's if you've seen your fish finder, you can tell like the clarity and you can see what's going on. You'll notice that even on like a hot summer day when there's a lot of algae bloom, or in a winter day like this, there's a lot of dirt and things floating around in the water, you'll see all that debris, but below a certain level, it'll appear to be pretty clear. Good evening, Cody Conway. Nice to see you on tonight. Happy New Year to you as well. So, you're going to be, in this dirty water or dirtier water, no matter what kind of water you're fishing right now, it should be chocolate milk. It could be just mud water. It may be pretty clear water, even though, like, say, some of these bigger reservoirs out in the main areas where there's not a lot of fresh incoming water that's staining it up quite too bad, water won't be that bad. But you'll notice at a certain point that kind of clarity, it gets clearer as you drop below a certain level. So right now in the wintertime too, sometimes these fish will pull down anywhere from, they can be shallow in a foot or two, but they really like to hang out in that 40 to 80 foot range, and they can be 40 to 60, 60 to 80. They can be in a couple different groups there. But a lot of times there'll be a lot of good schools of quality, 1 to 3 pound fish that can either help you fill out a bag, fun to catch. If you're taking kids, if you're guiding people and you want to catch fish, and you're not after the monsters and you're after the easier to target fish, it'd be easier to find those. They'll be in areas near where that fresh water is coming, but where they can also pin bait. They'll be down deeper, more towards the bottom. So all this ruckusness is going off, there'll still be some fish that are down there. Now, out of those fish, too, you're going to have some that are going to pull up, and you'll see that there'll be all this debris and crap floating through the water. Fish will be going through there picking stuff off. One place that you can nail a lot of really good sized bass this time of year is going to be on debris edges and debris lines. So I'm going to show you that on the whiteboard here. We're going to show you what that means. And I'm going to use one specific place as a demonstration. And hopefully you guys get something out of this. But this will be something that'll really, if you pay attention and you see this, I don't care if you're fishing over 100 feet of water or 5 feet or 10 feet, always fish this. There will be fish there. So it doesn't matter what the depth is, because they're not holding there for the depth. They're holding there for what I'm about to explain. So those of you who know Bagby know where the river comes in. There's a big turn that sweeps like this, and then there's kind of like a rock wall, and then it goes back along. There is, I think maybe a little creek channel comes in, but the river arm like this, and there's that point that kind of comes off into it like this, and then it, the Bagby being down here, okay, and this is right up above Bagby. Well, what happens is the debris comes floating this way, and it piles up right here. And sometimes there can be so much debris it'll almost shut the whole river off like this. But there'll be enough water. Usually it'll bust stuff, and you'll have stuff floating free here. So traditionally, what this line will look like is, from what I remember it, the few times that I fished it when I had a boat, is it'll kind of start like here, and it'll be a small amount, and then it will collect like this and run like this. And then what'll happen is pieces will just be constantly breaking and moving off and floating down into the main while new pieces come and add to it. So as some of it is being, because the water is going to constantly be going like this, so you'll have some of the debris coming off. But what'll happen, my point is, what'll happen here is you'll have this big layer of just logs and branches and sticks that'll be blocked up. And sometimes too, just like a mat of muck and junk and grass and crap that came down the hill, tumbleweeds, whatever. And what you want to do is, and it'll literally go like this, you want to start, either here or here. Ideally, I'll start here. And you fish this like you would the delta. Parallel fish the edge of this. So take your boat and cast crankbaits, jerk baits, and weightless Senkos and things if it's deep. If it's shallower, you can do that. You can jig, you can do all kinds of stuff. And then you can even, if you see holes in areas where there's a big tree here and there's some trees, but you see an opening there, you can literally pitch into that hole, jig, and pull out some big old fish and drag them over the logs. Even we've done that before. It's crazy. Sometimes you get snagged and you can't get your fish, or what'll happen is we'll just drive into the logs and start pushing them aside, and we just go in there and get our fish out, just kind of like punching. It's pretty crazy to do, but trust me, we've done it. And all jerk bait, reaction, all kinds of stuff, but you got to do it slow. It's the winter time, so jerk bait with some nice long pauses, long pause. A crankbait real slow, real fast at first to get it down, and then real slow along the edge of that, right up next to them trees. We got fish that come out, bam, and just hammer it. I've caught big old trout, lots of bass, big bass. This is just one of my funnest ways to fish up by Bagby when the water comes in anywhere from say December to like March, not April, Marchish, depending on the snow melt and all that. You'll get this big debris field that's right here, and you can run up and smack a ton of fish in this debris field and then run back down. If you're going to tournament fish or if you're fun fishing, this is one place you do not want to leave out up at Bagby if you get a shot. So now this can tie into any other lake. So talk about Don Pedro, New Maloney's, any area where you're going to have a bend and a curve and you see a bunch of debris pushed up against it, even if it only sticks out 4 or 5 feet, but you notice that the other shoreline does not have debris stacked up. There's no debris stacked here. There's no debris stacked here, but there is some here. I don't care if it's 2 or 3 feet of debris or 2 feet of debris, but if there's logs and junk pushed up right there, and it's not in other places, there will always be fish underneath that debris. I swear to you, I promise. That's just, most guys know this, but if you didn't, that's one killer technique that during this stormy, shitty weather, when you can't seem to find them, you're going and you're fishing shallow, you don't know what's going, can't get bit like that. You go out deep, you're not, you're kind of, you catch some fish, but you're like, it's not that great of a day. Go after stuff like this. Go hunt around the lake and find where debris from the wind is getting pushed into the back of a cove or around a swing like this. This is the most deadly. When there's current involved, and a point too, a main lake point, you got a perfect storm for monster bass to be right there. You can see, I used to throw those things like a jerk bait, like a crankbait, but you know what I never threw right there, which I'm going to be doing soon, because this was before I really did all that a lot. I'd be tossing A-rigs and big ass swim baits right along that, and I guarantee you're going to be some trout eaters down there too. Because I would do that and get big old trout that would come out and hit my crankbait, and big old bass that would come out and hit my crankbait. I dumped some 5, 6s easy, even a couple monsters there, doing this exact trick when I had my old champion bayliner. So, debris fields. That's tip number 1. So we're gonna keep track of our tips here. And tip number 1 is look for and fish debris fields. This is a big one, all right? Debris fields. Anywhere you can find them, especially if they match up with stuff like this, where you've got current. And then we're going to, and that, especially at the delta too, it works the same way. Just be careful. See, at the delta, the fish will want to hang out. If there's any live vegetation, they'll want to be where that's at. In the wintertime, a lot of this hyacinth will die, and they're really not going to be underneath there because there's not a good oxygen content where all that stuff's dead and deteriorating, putting a lot of nitrogen in the water. It's just, it's a decomposing, dead plant. It's not healthy. Fish don't like hiding in dead plants as much as they do in live ones. So this time of year, there's not much topwater live, but you can fish debris fields if you find stuff that's washed into the delta. Just watch out. Make sure you're not fishing a debris field of like dead lily pads. You can fish those, they'll work, but I wouldn't bother punching them much. I'd just stay on that outside line, and don't be surprised if they're not as magical. Something like at Bagby and a debris field on a lake with some nice water underneath it and some current, man, that's magic right there. So number one is debris field. Number two is going to be black and blue jigs in mud mines. All right, so with these, you're going to want to fish shallow. So even though it's cold, I don't care, summer, winter, fall, spring, there's always going to be some bass shallow, there'll be some bass deep. Oh, we do different stuff. It's trying to figure out where the better fish and where more of the fish are at, right? That's the kind of the name of the game. So it seems like a no-brainer, right? You get dirty water, you got low visibility, you got to use those darker colors. They're going to stand out much more. The bass is going to have an easier time targeting a black and a blue lure versus a light, chartreuse, a white, some kind of realistic greens and light browns and whatnot, a red, a light red, no, a dark black or blue or dark purple, something like that is going to show up way stronger through that mucky, dirty water. And so that's something that I would be doing maybe a bladed jig, right? A jig, like the chatterbait. A couple of different things. You can throw this similar presentation, even like some kind of, you can LV 500 that's in a darker color like that. I would do the same thing, an LV 500 through those mud lines, a black and blue jig through the mud lines, and I would be fairly active, not too fast though, but not too slow, because in that mud line, you need to get the fish's attention. So if you pops, some motion, some noise, the lure hitting, hitting the rocks, the splash of the lure landing, but you also don't want to sail the lure because the fish are still, even this time of year, they may be a little bit lethargic. So you're not trying to sail this jig through the water. You're not trying to like create a ton of commotion to where you want to move it too fast, but you're not doing that tactic where I drag it painfully slow. You might do some of that mixed with like a little pop, and then wait, and then drag a little, and then maybe one big pop, and just, it depends on the shoreline, stuff like that. But I'll vary it up a little bit. I want to kind of create some action. I want some visibility on that. I'm going to use black and blue jigs, mud lines that also work great, again, the debris lines that we talked about, right? The debris fields. So black and blue in the mud lines where you see that there's clearer water and then dirtier water, especially if it's that oxygenated, fresh incoming water. Get in the backs of creeks, get into some of the washes where that water's coming in, back your boat off, throw that black and blue jig, black and blue Senko with a Nico rig or with some kind of weight. You can go weightless too if there's not a lot of current, and fish it right up in an inch or foot of water, and then fish that sucker down 20, 30 feet or so. Don't worry about fishing in 60 to 80 because those fish are doing something completely different. The fish that are up in that mud line that may be moving up and down for bait or for fresh incoming oxygen and the nutrients and all that stuff, they're going to be a little bit more shallower, but they may be as deep as 25, 30, maybe even 35. But at a certain point, I would pull out, and I'm not fishing deep for those kind of fish, obviously, because you got all this stuff coming in off the mountain. Those fish are going to be closer up the shore. Another kind of rule to tie that in with, now, again, depends on time of year, but most of the time, rule of thumb is if the lake is lowering, the fish pull away from shore. If the lake and water levels are rising, fish push shallow. Hey Ray, nice to see you on. Lucas Edwards. Hope everybody's yeah, we're actually, McClure, we were talking about Bagby. And I can talk about Cottonwood, a couple of arms, and Temperance, a couple of areas where you're going to have those debris fields line up, and you can have some heydays with them. Piney is kind of a straight shot out. You don't really get any debris fields in Piney much, but you will, sometimes in Arnold. Part of the shallows can have some that'll trip up in a couple areas. Bagby has a really nice, the best debris field. And Cottonwood in the back has one that'll be way back in the back. And there's an arm that sometimes the debris field gets pushed in on the right-hand side. So anyways, we can go over that. Would rattles on a jig be good? Oh yeah, right now I would be, so the rule of thumb is early winter and like fall, you want to have rattles because there's more bait fish, more noise. As winter progresses and gets colder and colder and colder, you actually want to go more silent. You want to ditch the rattles. But with all this water coming in, with the mud and debris, I would definitely probably have a rattle in. Wouldn't hurt. If I notice I'm not getting bit, though, I'm going to, before I chuck that lure and give up, I'll take the rattle out and go silent, especially as I get into January and late January and February fishing before we get a warm up. It all depends on the time of year, because you got those years where we're cold into March. You got those years where it feels like summer in February. So depending on what kind of weather we have, January, February, the rattles, I'm kind of more silent fishing. But when we get nasty storm weather like this and the water's real dirty, I tend to like a rattle to kind of help with the noise attraction, because with less visibility, fish have got to rely on their other senses. Now, people talk about the lateral line about a bass, and I'm not a pro by any means or a fish biologist, but from what a lot of what I've read is that's mostly bullshit, and that a lateral line, a fish does not like sonar out and like sense movement like a bat. The lateral line is sensitive to motion and movement like that, but not what you would think. So it's not like bass are like Jaws and there's this little ripple and they feel it and they're tuned in so easy. It's not quite like that. Of course, it does help, but I think that as bass fishermen, we've been led down that lateral line vibration path. I think it's more sight and sound. So, when we talk about vibration, a lot of times with vibration also comes sound. And then with vibration also, so if my thing looks like this to you, the profile, if you're watching it come on at you like this, the profile is this big. I turn it this way, now my profile's much bigger, right? Now, if I'm coming at you and I'm wobbling, my profile looks bigger, right? But if I'm coming at you going, my profile looks smaller, regardless of the size of the lure. So that's also why in the wintertime, a flat-sided crankbait, you ever heard of like, speed cranking, flat-sided, because you want to use less wobble. So the wintertime, from what I've always read and been told by other, better anglers and whatnot, is that basically the reason for rattles and noise earlier in the year is that the bait is more schooled up. There's more of it. There's more noise, more commotion as the bait's moving around. And then as you progress later in the year, there's less bait. It dies off. It's getting eaten off. And then what does survive is usually a little bit bigger bait and less bait. So what'll happen is it gets quieter, basically, right? So there's not as much noise. and things are moving kind of slower. So even if there is a lot of them, they're moving slower. They're creating less noise. It's just less natural, I guess you would say. So I've always kind of heard, use rattles in the summertime, spring and fall, whatever. Maybe not always in the spring with spawn, kind of iffy, but deep winter, I've always kind of been, more of a silent. And then when something has vibration, when the water's dirty, you want it to have a lot more vibration. When the water's clear, you want to have a tight vibration. So, with circling back to what I'm talking about, is with this water getting dirty and with the bass having low visibility, right? So now they can't see. So, they're going to rely on hearing much more. And any, and I don't know about smell when the water's all tore up like that, but I'm sure if something's close enough, or the scent gets to it, yeah. But I would assume, like I said, that sight and sound would be the two biggest factors over things like scent and lateral line. So you know again, there's a lot of factors. So if the water's dirty, I would probably definitely try some rattles. Long-winded answer, I know, but I would definitely give it a fair shake. With the water being more clear, at this time of year, I wouldn't use rattles. So, you got to kind of play it by ear. So, if it's not working for you, take the rattles out. But I would definitely be using things like black and blue jigs and mud lines. And I guess we can call this like add on to two would be dark colored reaction in the same places. So mud line, meaning you got some water coming in. It's kind of like, in the summer when there was all the wake boats, and then like from 10 feet, 20 feet out from shore is just like a mud line. And then out from there, it's, nice clear water. There's all the boats out tearing, and the waves are just making the water just super nasty and dirty. So in that same kind of situation, right, when you get those mud lines, because that water's coming off, you can do the black and blue jigs on bottom bouncing. Now, if you're not getting anything on the bottom, in that same area, I'm going to try a black and blue spinner bait. I'm going to try an A rig with darker colored swim baits on it, not white, not traditional. I'm actually have blue or purple swim baits on. I swear to God. And you got a crankbait, same thing. I'm going to go more flat sided or a jerk bait, and instead of a square bill or a deep diver. So I'm going to use a flat sided crank if I'm using one that goes deeper, and I'll give it some rips and pauses. A LV 500 that's darker colored too, would be kind of more matching with that bottom bouncer. But anyways, the main point is tying in color, black and blue, with those mud lines. So because outside that mud line, visibility is going to be a little bit better. Fish might be able to study it more, might not want it. But in that mud line or in that transition area where the fish may be waiting to ambush some retarded bait fish that's like in the mud line and don't know, and it pops out into the open, pow, right? There goes the bait fish. So the bass will hang out in those areas a lot, and you'll usually see the largemouth like to hang out in that shallow, dirty water a lot more than spots. They'll also be in those debris fields a lot more. So if you're big fish hunting in this kind of nasty, crazy weather, I'd recommend stay shallow-ish and fish big rocks, boulders, debris, mud lines, and don't be afraid of reaction in the winter when the weather's like this, because also tying in that no matter what time of year it is, there's some rule of thumbs, right? And rule of thumbs are going to be windy equals spinner bait or rip baits. Okay. Now, so if it's windy, I don't care if it's the summer, winter, just you might change your retrieve. Summer, you might be a lot more faster. Wintertime, you might be a little bit more slower or a lot more slower, right? But when it gets windy, slow roll the spinnerbait, black and blue in the colors if you're in those dirtier areas. But it doesn't matter where you're at. The water's pretty, not pretty, but it's decently clear. You know, you're fishing some main lake points or something. That wind kicks up, throw a spinnerbait or a rip bait. And by a rip bait, what I'm going to mean is an LV 500 or a jerk bait. And why I call it a rip bait is because you're going to be much more violent with your fishing. You're going to have pauses, but in the wind, if I'm using an LV 500 and it's not wind, you guys know my traditional lazy chill. I like to jig them, not yo-yo, because I think of yo-yoing as doing this, where you're up over a school of fish and you jerk the LV 500 up and it comes down, and then you might try soft pulling it up and your LV goes up and down, right? That's yo-yoing. What I like doing is casting that jig on the bottom or the LV 500 and just then occasionally I'm like, a good rip. But most of the time I'm taking my pole and I'm just barely lifting and then down, then reeling my slack. Wait a minute, barely lifting and then down, right? No, when you get really windy like this, rip it and then wait 10, 15 seconds. Make sure all the lures fell, it's hit, and just wait. And then pop, one time maybe, right? And then wait. And then the next one, maybe a little less violent. Boom, boom. And then wait. Next one, rip, rip, rip. I'm going to do 3. I'm going to kind of switch it up, and I'm going to rip, right? That's why it's called a rip bait. Same way I'm going to fish the jerk bait. I'm going to chill and then whap, whap, whap. Massive jerks. You know, boom, boom, boom. And then stop. And then one big one. Boom. Shoot. And then stop. Right? That's how I'm going to fish in the wind with those reaction baits. And again, it doesn't hurt to fish those in those mud lines or near those debris fields. That's if you're fishing, power fishing, looking for big fish, and you want to try to catch maybe less numbers and more size. Now, if you're going for numbers, and it's this kind of weather, here's some other tips that might help out for the different type of fisherman who isn't, let's say, is tuned in with throwing the spinner baits and crankbaits and rip baits. So if you're a bottom bouncer, you throw Ned rigs and drop shots, shaky heads, and you throw stuff like that. Well, I've got some tips for you. So number 4, we're going to start heading off into, well, it's winter time, right? Water's dirty. Let's say you've tried this and you're just not having any luck. Okay. Wintertime, 2 kind of spots to check out. Main lake points and greater than 45-degree rocky shore. Those 2. And I'd also throw in some cuts where bass can push bait fish. Not necessarily all the way in the back of a creek, but if you've got a shoreline that's going away and then you've got a cut in it, and then it goes, and this is a pretty reasonable big size cut, like not huge, but big. Let's say your boat's like this in there. That's perfect, right? Because the bass will push bait fish that'll sit in this cut, and the bass will keep them pinned in there, and they'll feed on them for a while. So sometimes they'll be in those kind of 3 locations, right? And if you're not having any luck fishing debris, fishing mud lines, stuff like that, I want you to go to the winter pattern then, right? You're going to fish deep now. Got to have your fizzers on us if we're going to be keeping fish for pictures or for tournaments. You're going to be fishing in probably 25 minimum to 60 or 80. I would be usually focused on 40 to 80 if I'm fishing this way right here. And you get same thing, dark colors. Main lake points, steep, rocky shore. Doesn't have to be cliff though, because sometimes that kind of stuff you want to float and fly. But just you don't necessarily want to be on a real long tapering point. Or if you do, you want to be over 50 or 60 feet, because those will hold fish too if they're in a good zone where there's some current. Maloney's is a great example where there's a lot of fish I know that sit off some of them real long tapering shallow points, but they'll be sitting in 50 to 80 feet of water. Um, in this time of year. So again, that's main lake points. So if it's steep or shallow, I don't care. Main lake points in the wintertime is a good place to find bass, and they'll almost always stack up on one side or the other. Sometimes they'll be in this zone here. This is more of a travel zone. And what do I mean by that? So you got a main lake point. Let's say fish are migrating up and down the lake, right? Well, this is a staging and a feeding spot. And let me explain. So let's just say the wind or current is going this way, right? So what's going to happen is them fish are going to stage right off of here to ambush things coming around this point. Now, say that the current and the wind is going the other way, well, then those fish are going to be staged off of this side of the point to ambush stuff coming out. Stuff that is out here is usually in the process of actually moving around, or you'll have the one or two big dogs will be right here because this is a prime spot because anything coming around this point has to come by here. However, these are prime ambush places where a fish can wait to hit trout that are coming across this point, or bluegill, or bigger meals, right? Smaller fish in the 1 to 3 pound may be traveling, and you can get them in this kind of area. But these are staging areas on a point that's just how I feel, and I find that I catch a lot more fish on these areas of the point, but sometimes those big fish will come either on the tip of those staging areas or right here where the top dog will be. But there's usually not a lot of numbers. So if you're fishing main lake points, again, I don't care if steep, shallow, check them out. There'll be times when you want to fish one over the other, right? If you can find some nice rocky shore, especially if there's transitions near it. So if it's like a rocky shore for a mile, it's not really, I mean, there's so much fishable water where the fish going to be. But when you see some like, some kind of more plain, sandy bottom, or with just the small stuff like McClure's known for in a lot of the normal areas, just small little like grain rock and like shale rock that's busted up so thin it's almost like sand, but it's like fish tank sand, like fish tank gravel almost. So it's not sand, but it's like, and then you come across, so there's like a bunch of that and whatever, but then there's a stretch of just big rocky, don't have to necessarily be big, but just different hard bottom with some rock in it. They're going to be right there. So that's where I'll check that. And then again, I'll usually want something a little more steeper in the winter. I don't want up and down unless I'm float and fly. If I'm float and fly, I'm looking for that. If I'm trying to bottom bounce, it's not really, you might make a cast and have to wait, and then you're instantly in 60 feet of water on your first, depending, you might land in 10, hop it once, be down into 20, barely drag it again. Next thing you know, you're in 40, 50 feet and you got to move your bait, 3 or 4 feet or whatever. So when I'm fishing that real tight stuff, float and fly is a great stuff for that. Otherwise, I'm looking for some steepest shore. So I want it over 45 degree, but I want it to have hard bottom with some rock and stuff like that. And also have some transition there. Basically, you don't want the whole stretch of this shoreline to all be the same crap. But if this stretch is like that fish tank bottom, but then this stretch is boulders and kind of hard bottom with maybe a stretch of some fish tank bottom, and then some more boulders and stuff like that. And then the rest is that fish tank stuff. Let's say this transition here, they're going to be in the transitions, but they'll also be all along this hard bottom right here in the winter. That's how I feel. They'll be all along that rock wall. That's usually a spotted bass pattern though. Sometimes there'll be some nice largies in there, but in the wintertime, they'll be in the debris field and those washes, from what I've had a lot of luck with. Um, so, main lake points, rocky shore, and some cuts, dark colors, and deep, meaning usually over 40 feet or inches. That's not, we want 40 feet, not inches, right? So we want to fish over 40 feet. Usually we want to fish darker colors. We want to fish cuts where the bass can pin bait fish, and you can find schools of them and comfortably spoon, or in this kind of weather I probably wouldn't spoon, but you can get down there and get them. And rocky shore, main lake points. I'm going to start fishing this way that I told you guys at first. This is my backup pattern. And then the last one to add on to this right here is something we all know, but in the wintertime, when you think you're fishing slow down and fish even slower. Just whatever you're doing. If you tried all the tips and tricks, you read all the bass magazines, you do what I said, you do what this guy said, you do what that guy said, you do what everybody said, and you just can't seem to catch fish in the winter, especially in this shitty weather. Slow down. Chill. Just take your time. Because you might find that all of a sudden you're noticing that the bites are pressure bites, that the fish aren't even really hitting, and that they're, as soon as you slow down, you're almost getting bit every cast. Next thing you know, you're catching a ton of fish. It can happen. You just have to find the pattern. You can go half the day or all day dang near and fish wrong, and then go meet up with your buddy who's been murdering them, and then all of a sudden, as soon as you catch on to that pattern, boom, 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 right? So if they're deep, these are the things you want to keep in mind here. Hey, Mario, what's up? What's up, Cam Say? Ronald, everybody, nice to see you on tonight. Hope everybody enjoys the show. We're going to be talking, like I said, we're talking about tips and tricks for fishing in muddy conditions, raising lake levels, stuff like that, colors, what kind of lures, what kind of speeds and presentations that I would recommend, and a little bit about safety as well. So I hope everybody enjoys the show. Now, you don't notice down here in the corner, we've got three names here. We got James David, who's our number 1 winner. Mario Ibarra, who's basically, he's our number 2 winner, but I got to get him 2 gifts. So I guess maybe he didn't get one of the other prizes when he won. So we're going to get him his thing sent out, and then Set the Hook, we're going to get you a gift card as well. And then on top of that, we've got Christmas. This year, what I've done is last year I gave all of our Christmas members a few lures. This year, I basically hand wrote everybody a little thank you note and a little card saying thank you, and I got you guys little gift cards so you can buy what you want, basically. So that way, if I got you guys square bills and you wanted jerk baits, you're not upset. If I got you jerk baits and you wanted flat sided cranks, I don't know what everybody wants. This time of year, I'm doing a lot of slow and low fishing with Cincos and jigs and drop shots and Ned rigs and stuff like that. Or I'm also using things like the jerk bait, the flat sided crankbait, an A rig, a spinner bait. Pretty much, and an LV 500. That's pretty much my go-to. I'm gonna start throwing some swim baits more. Good news as well. We haven't talked about it yet tonight, but we're going to go ahead and transition from that. So if you guys want, I'm going to leave this up. I know it's probably backwards on the screen, so I'll reread them off to you guys. We'll leave it up for a second, then I'm going to go ahead and take it off, take it down. Then we'll get into the next topic here. But so winter time, try to remember rule of thumb. Lakes, when the lake level rises, fish go shallow. When the lake level drops, fish pull off. It's not always like that though, but most of the time it is. There's fresh water coming in upriver in the creeks and cuts. Look for debris fields, fish those, fish them with the said lures, mud lines, just discoloration lines from current and from rain runoff primarily. Black and blue colors are going to be king, so darker colors, black, blue, purple, June bud, stuff like that. Jigs, chatterbaits, keep them low and slow. Don't move them too fast, but again, you can move them a little bit because one thing you can do if you're just like ultra crawling that thing super slow, fish might not ever see it, hear it, or smell it, unless you literally knock the fish in the head or right next to it. So you got to have a little bit of movement. Also, remember, kind of in between there is if it gets real windy and it's also rainy and shitty and dirty, remember to throw them spinner baits, A rigs, and rip baits, things like the LV500, a jerk bait. You're going to want to use a lot of commotion and movement. If you're using a jerk bait and it's real windy and the waves are kind of big, you have to use a bigger jerk bait with a bigger lip, something that gets down 6 to 8. You want a suspending jerk bait. You don't want a floating jerk bait. You want to use a bigger one because a jerk bait can be real hard to control and use in big waves. So if that's the case, usually an LV500 is a lot better. Ripping it, you can even reel them, speed reel them, and then kill it, speed reel it, and kill it. There'll be a lot of fish that, even though it may be really cold, weird weather, that are out swimming around, moving around more so than you think, which is where those A rigs, stuff like that. But a lot of the time, those fish are going to be either suspended or deeper. But with all this incoming water, you sure as heck can bet you're going to find some fish up shallow where that incoming water is coming in. And wherever there's debris fields, stuff like that, whether it's over 100 feet of water or 10 feet of water, debris fields are always going to hold some fish. And main lake points, killer spot. Main lake points, 45 plus degree angle rock shore, especially if it's kind of broken where there's different types of shoreline and it's not a mile of the same shit and you have some change up. That's really important too if you can find that. Cuts can also hold some fish. It doesn't hurt to stop and look in the cut where fish might actually have bait fish pinned and herd like a snack for all the winter, just sitting down there, keeping them pinned in an area, not really letting them go. Um, that's kind of how guys jig fish or spoon fish in the winter. They'll go find these big schools of bass, and they'll almost always be either on a main lake point or in a cut where the bass have the bait fish pinned. And you just drop right down on their heads and you activate them. Um, Again, remember darker colors. And then if you're fishing, bottom bouncing, not necessarily. And another thing is if you're going to, let's say, finesse fish or bottom bounce fish in this crazy weather, you might need to use a heavier weight so that you can have more sensitivity. You get to the bottom quicker, and the wind affects your casting and your just the whole situation a lot less. You have more control if you have a little bit of a head of your weight. And then the last tip is just remember two different ways of fishing is even if you're going erratic and fast, um, like a blade bait or something like that in the winter, it's still going to be fast and then slow, fast and then slow. It's not usually ever a super speed retreat. However, speed cranking does work. And what'll happen is if there's a bass staged and sitting somewhere and your lure comes zipping by, it'll come out and hit it a lot of the times. That's why guys will speed crank in rocks. In the bass, it's either like a fight or flight type thing where they decide to eat it or they don't. But most of the time, even with something like that, like a jerk bait, what I mean by fast and then slow is sure the jerk bait's got this darting quick movement, but in the wintertime, your pauses are going to be a lot longer in between. Um, Usually, it can be really long actually. So hope these tips help out. So that's why slow down. When you think you're going slow, slow down even more. Off topic, but bought a retractable pole and reel combo for $8.99 on clearance at Walmart. Bought it for lunchtime fishing in the work truck. Just FYI for anyone. Yeah, dude. Hey, long time no see, Charles Chalk. Nice. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Mad Bass as well. Thanks. But yeah, I fished with a telescoping rod for a while, and it is good for a temporary use. It'll get you some. You can actually catch some pretty decent fish. What I noticed is one of two things. If you beat it up too bad, like with big fish, so like because I used to pond fish a lot when I was using those, and I'd actually take the telescoping fishing pole to school, and we used to ditch school sometimes. When we were in high school, I was like the only kid I knew at Merced High. I was like, I didn't care. Sometimes my friends, I had two friends, I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but sometimes, well, I had a bunch of friends, but I had two particular ones at least that would either ditch school with me and fish, or if we didn't ditch, we'd go to school. Then as soon as school was over, we'd go run and we'd fish, and then we'd come home late. And so when we did that, we took our fishing stuff to school. They don't want to get made fun of. So they'd ask me if I'd take their fishing stuff because I'd look someone in the face and be like, dude, I'll knock you out. Like, leave me alone. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm going fishing. You want to make fun of me? You're all going to, I'd look someone in high school like, yeah, you're in the cool crowd now making fun of me for fishing, but you'll be like on drugs and you'll have like three baby mama and don't talk to me about that shit. Like, I knew as a young kid, the old nice guys finish last type stuff. I knew like with the cool crowd and with what was going on, like, hey, whatever. I wasn't trying to be that. I had a lot of friends too. I just didn't care. So like I'd take my fishing pole to school. Like I did not give two F's. My tackle box, everything, be sitting in class. Like, you know what I mean? So the school gets out, I'm going fishing. I'll be like, so what you doing? What are you doing with your life? I'm gonna go enjoy it. I'm going fishing. And it was funny. I actually got into a couple confrontations with people tried to make fun of me, and I just made like I think I made them look stupid in the whole class. I didn't really care. And you go back and you look back, and a lot of those people that I remember now, it's like, yeah, how's life treating you now, buddy? So, anyways, I would take those telescoping rods and we'd go to these bass ponds and catch 3 pound, 4 pound bass with them, and we'd just break them consistently pretty quickly. But they were awesome for that. Now, what they really came in handy for was some light fishing, like trout fishing, the smaller bass, like 1 to 2 pounds. Caught so many on them before they break. The reels were usually better. The poles would usually something would happen. Snap it or mess it up, overextend it or pull it out and do something. But those were pretty cool. Sometimes it would spin, and your line get all messed up. But yeah, I had a lot of fond memories fishing with some telescoping fishing rods and reels. I actually had a great time. Like 2 years of my high school, I partied. Like that was me partying. It's like I take beer too, even whatever. I even remember, this is an off-topic joke, but if you want to know a little something about me, I swear to God, put this on everything. In high school, I want to say junior year of high school, we used to have a styrofoam cup and we would set it on the desk, and on it in a permanent marker, we put beer money on one side and 40 water on the other. And chicks and people literally would throw money in our cup and be like, that's your beer cup? And I'd be like, yep. And they would throw money. We'd laugh. We didn't give a shit. Like, we didn't care. I was broke. We were poor kids. I've been homeless before. So some of the stuff we did, we were just fools. We were trolls before there were trolls, before the internet existed. And like, we didn't see it. Like, we didn't care. We didn't panhandle. We wouldn't ask anybody. And it was more of a joke. Like basically openly saying like, yeah, we're going to go get hammered after school at 16 years old. What are you going to do about it? Nobody'd say that, like, looking back on it's crazy, but like people thought it was funny as hell. Like it was the running joke. People would literally throw 5, 10 bucks, couple bucks in there, and sure as shit, we'd go to the liquor store and have some adult buy us beer, and off we go to the fishing. We're fishing with 40 ounces in our backpack. The cops drive by and wave, and they see us. Look at these young guys. They're going fishing. They're up to good. They're doing, yeah, we are, buddy, but not fishing like you think. Maybe not doing nothing wrong, but we weren't no squares, you know what I mean? We got down. So, anyways, off topic and totally ranty because when you brought up the telescoping fishing pole, brought up some fun memories of high school. Fished McClure Sunday. All of my fish caught were shallow and most where water was coming in. Was told the lake has come up over 35 feet. Yeah, nice. See, adds context to that, man. They should be. That's where a lot of them will be, where that fresh oxygenated water's coming in. And sometimes it in the winter, we're so used to fishing deep because that's the other way you'll catch them, is that you can kind of forget that. But when the lake's rising like that, get up shallow, fish. Oh, Oakdale High has the bass club. Yeah, you're right. But that's like they're cool, man. Merced High don't have no bass club. I don't think, anyways. Golden Valley don't have no bass club. I don't think. I mean, maybe they do, but I'm not aware of any of the Merced areas having a bass club for high schoolers. But I do know Oakdale and some Northern California, I think Lodi, Northern Sacramento areas have some high school fishing groups, which is really cool. I like that. You know, that's cool right there. So for us, we got made fun of, but we didn't care. We just fished, we were nuts. But yeah, see, so when the lake gets dirty, get shallow and get up there and hunt those fish. And if that doesn't work for you, try going deep with those tips and tricks. So, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Smash that like button. I'm not going anywhere just yet. I just want to do a couple of shout outs and reminders. So, I don't know if I talked about this, but the boat should be fixed. I was told part will be here January 10th. So, that's only 6 days away. Don't know how long it's going to take him to put it in. Maybe a week or two. I mean, I'm not going to assume just because all of a sudden gets in, he's going to jump for me. I'm sure he has other stuff he's got to do. But looking back, I've been waiting 4 months. My boat's been in the shop. I went back and seen the last time I fished when my last video was in my boat. And it's crazy. It's August, September, October, November, and December. So 5 months actually. That I haven't been in my own boat. So it sucks, but the boat should be fixed soon. And hopefully, I told them also about the live well issues because the pump works, but the water drains out if I pull out. So, when you got to do a weigh in and they do a drive up weigh in, kill my fish all the time. The damn water won't stay in the live well. And if I try to plug it, it'll overflow into the boat, right? I can keep it like that while I'm fishing and then maybe plug it when I go to pull out. But the way my live well is set up, it doesn't have an internal plug. The plug would be on the back of the boat. And so if it's plugged, it's plugged. You can't hit plug and then unplug it. I don't have one of those like little nice setups or anything. So the way it's normally supposed to work, with your pump out valve, all that, my check valve had either some debris stuck in it or the check valve's busted. So, he has to pull the gas tank, do all that crap again. But with that being said, even with all the work, I don't expect my boat being out more than a month, more than 2 or 3 weeks. So by February, I should be back into the swing of things. I'm going to take it easy. I'm going to do some fishing. I'm going to do some big fish fishing. I think I'm just going to fish this year hunting for big fish, hunting for personal best, double digits, try to catch a teener, swim bait bass. I'm going to try to up my game because I'm used to now not putting out so many fishing videos because I haven't had a boat. So then when I do get my boat, do I really need to go out 2 times, 3 times a week and post all these videos like I've done of me catching 40 to 60 fish, all 1 to 3 pounds? Like, hey, fish, right? I think it's time to graduate, so to speak. and I'd like to take you guys on that adventure and hopefully have some much better, awesome content this year. So I'm going to focus on content creation and big fish. I'm going to try to get some better equipment and better, better recording stuff and better lighting, better sound, all that good stuff, so that I can put out some really good quality stuff. So I'm going to start working this year quality over quantity. So I do not think I'm going to be back into tournament fishing until the following year. I want to save up some money. I might want to get a new boat, or if keep the one that I've got, I definitely want to get like some live scope on it. I want to get some upgrades done to it, and then we'll get into the tournament trail and we'll have fun, because I'm real competitive, have a great time like that. But I don't care if I lose. I mean, I want to win, so I kind of do, but I mean, I don't. Like, the name of the game is I love getting out there and mingling with the other anglers. I love learning. I love challenging myself. I love the thrill. I love the weigh-in. I love the camaraderie, the fishing community. Most of the guys are really good people. So it's just all around a fun, wholesome hobby to have. I'm just not at this point ready to just throw so much money at it when I've got a business that I'm running, the Air Doctor Heating and Air, and it's really taken off. I'm not trying to talk financials or anything, but just as an example, last year I did like 85, 90,000. This year I did like 170,000. Now that's not how much profit I made, but that's how much income the business brought in, just me by myself. So next year could be 220, could be 250. It's only getting higher and higher. Eventually I'm going to start hiring people. So this is great problems to have, but my focus is on growing my business. Also this YouTube channel, I got to keep putting in effort and time here, doing these live streams, connecting with the community, but also need to have some on the water fishing time. So I'm trying to balance all that. So that's why when I get my boat back, I don't think I want to fish tournaments, because then I'm going to be too preoccupied with pre-fishing, then fishing the tournament. Then I can't release the video until after the tournament unless I'm really trying to give all my information and best stuff away. And then what point am I even gambling? Because then I'm just giving you my information, but then I have what you have, but you have what you have plus what I have. So it's like, it's not really smart planning to do in a tournament. So that's why next year I hope to maybe help a lot of you guys maybe win some tournaments or cash some checks in them, because I'm going to be sharing where, what, how, quality over quantity. So if I can catch 5 big fish, I no longer care about catching 30 or 40, 50, 60 fish. I'd rather focus on actually doing much more fishing like Christian Ostrander. That's how I used to fish. I used to power fish a lot more. I used to I used to hate the bottom bouncing crap. I'd almost never throw it. They used to call me spinnerbait Sam. So I could use a spinnerbait 24/7, all times of the day, night, year, winter, spring, fall. Found so many different ways to use that lure. All I had to have was a rod, a reel, some line, and a couple spinnerbaits. And I don't care what time of year it was. I could use a spinnerbait like a jig or a chatterbait, throw it out in 60 feet of water, let it hit the bottom and pop it off. And I could literally bottom bounce my spinnerbait. I could slow roll it. I could pulse it. I can speed reel it. I can suspend fish. I could top water fish, almost wake bait with it. I could do so much with my spinnerbait that it became like a one lure kills all and I was murking and catching giant fish with it. Same thing with crankbaits and some of the top water I was throwing. And really, when I got into tournament fishing and YouTube fishing, I bottom bounced a lot before that, but it became like an addiction to try to catch fish for you guys. And so this year, my focus is when I get my boat back, really want to put some monsters in the boat, and I really want to show you guys maybe some cool tips and tricks that, or if we've talked about them, put those into actual use instead of just like, here's another fish, guys. Oh, on the drop shot. Oh, 40 feet deep. Oh, I hear McClure killing it. Much more educational, I guess you would say. But I want to maintain being entertaining, right? Try to be fun, funny, and down to earth as well. So it's a balance I'm working on. But anyways, I'm also going to be putting more content out on Common Sense Talks. So if you want to know more about me personally, if you want to know about like my politics, views on the news, what's going on in the world, the pandemic, COVID, China, war, money, finances, crypto, stuff like that, come check out my channel, Common Sense Talks. I don't put out a lot of content there because it's such a small channel and I don't really get any return on it yet. So, but you gotta start somewhere. You gotta walk before gotta crawl before you can walk, before you can run, before you can fly. So here on this channel, we're probably still in that crawling stage when you come to YouTube channels, but at least I'm on the scene, right? Monetized, got a couple thousand subscribers. I thank you guys very much for that. And I just would like to grow this into an awesome community and do some really good things with it. Because I don't think I'm the best fisherman, but I want to try to be one hell of an entertaining fisherman and an all-around fisherman where we can do videos on all kinds of stuff, even branch out into like prepper stuff, maybe gun stuff or outdoor stuff and hunting stuff. Different species fishing, go do some trips to Florida. I mean, like if my business is doing good and I have the abilities and funds, I'd like to start doing some chartered ocean fishing, take you guys along for the ride, go take a boat ride with like Kyle West, Ryan Cook's buddy, out at the Delta, go catch some monster sturgeon and show you guys that. So the door is open to some much better things if I just plan it and do it right. That's what I'm looking at this year, and that's what I want to bring to the channel. So thank you guys for bearing with me. I hope these tips and tricks help out. Smash that like button. We'll see you guys soon. I'll be back probably Friday. I've got some work that's going on. So, but the winners, I've got your guys' stuff's going to be going out. And then all members of the channel, make sure I know a lot, I have a lot of your guys' information, but make sure you reach out to me if you're a member of the channel. Every Christmas, I give members of the channel a free gift from me to say thank you for supporting the channel, because I try to make sure that members get content earlier, they get it first. I'm going to be doing some members only live streams, but it's such a small channel. It's also been like when I do a members only and I only get 3 or 4 or 5 people on, when I do a regular live stream, I get 15 or 20 on. It's kind of, you forget to do that. And so for the members, I don't ever want to forget about you guys. I appreciate you. You're the backbone of this channel. You're the ones that are the ardent supporters. And there's a lot of subscribers who maybe want to be members or they're not members, but they've been here for the beginning. And people that are just getting here as well, new. We welcome everybody to the channel. It wouldn't be anything without you guys, right? So that's the big thing, is I just want to say thank you. So again, for Christmas, all members are going to get a gift. You guys are going to get a complimentary Bass Pro Shops or similar gift card from me with an actual handwritten note to saying thank you from Common Sense Fishing, with some little jokes and information, usually detailed to each individual member, because I know most of you guys, and this is a small enough community still that I know most of all my viewers, my members, all that. And then the ones that I maybe don't know, I pay attention and I know most of the people that comment. And if you're someone who watches, you kind of just hang out and you watch the channel and you get a kick out of it. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button if you would. It really helps. Get a chance, leave a like, and also just leave a comment. I'd be glad to interact. I'm very open and easygoing like that. So reach out, say hi. And with that being said, we'll see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for watching Common Sense Fishing. I hope everybody has a happy new year. And again, them jig sucking lips be tearing it up. All right. Happy New Year's, Mike.